romantic age, we are not talking about romance as in general. We talk about the romance with nature. In this age, industries started developing at a very faster rate. The concept of urban life, rural life, they started coming into picture, and the people who were already living in the earlier ages where life was very simple. People used to work in leisure, but suddenly there was a certain section of the people who wanted to get rich, who wanted to get more resources, who wanted a better lifestyle for them. So this conflict started building up in the society. We can call romantic age as an escapist's age also, because yes, the urban society offered you more money, it offered you more riches, but it had more rules and regulations to the how, the why, the what, the where of everything, how it was happening. So people were trying to escape. There were many people who were trying to escape that kind of a thing. So the debate of whether the life in a rural area is better or a life in the city is better. This was a major concept taken up in this particular age. And it forms the basics of most of the writings that used to happen. Now, you should notice that in every age, this conflict will always be there. This kind of a conflict that either one should follow the heart or the brain, simple living or high thinking. So this thing has always been there since time immemorial. Whether you should follow the religion, whether you should follow science, so it comes in different forms, but there is always a debate which forms the center of attraction for any and every kind of writing. You need to familiarize yourself with that kind of a debate, because that is what is going to take you to the themes of many of the writings of that particular time. Now, when we talk about romantic age, we are talking about the time and tide, and we talk about escapism. So mostly we had poetry in that, because as Wordsworth said, that it is the spontaneous outflow of our emotions. Whatever we feel, we write it in the form of poetry. And this will be questioned again in the modern age by T.S. Eliot, but we'll talk about that in that video. So poetry was a main source of writing in this era, and many of the writers focused on this. There was Lord Byron, Coleridge, Keats, different kinds of authors coming with poets coming with their own ideas. You will have the Gothic novel also coming into prominence. So the idea of supernatural will also be there in this particular area. The novel of Frankenstein is again a main characteristic of this era. So let's talk about the background of the Romantic movement. Romantic period is designated from 1798 Wordsworth and Coleridge's lyrical ballads to the death of Sir Walter Scott and Reform Bill, which intended the right to vote or to middle class and labourers was passed. England moved from a primarily agricultural to a modern industrial society. Thus, the balance of power passed on from the landowner to the industrial units. The French Revolution received enthusiastic support to the beginning from the liberals and the radicals in England. The new slogans, liberty and equality, promised a free society. Monarchy was abolished and feudal structures were demolished. The American Revolution led to the Declaration of Independence 1776 by the 13 colonies. The term Romantic implies literary and philosophical theory which tends to see the individual at the very center of all life and experience. The individual is placed at the center of the art. Literature, therefore, an expression of the unique feelings and particular attitude of that particular man only. It is opposed to the artificial conventions, the reigning literary tradition and poetic establishment. Romantic poets made daring innovations, the themes, the form of language, style of poetry, ordinary characters, and supernatural themes were used. Strum and Drang, literary translated in English as Storm and Stress, was a proto-romantic German literary movement in the late 18th century that exalted nature, individual subjectivity, and in particular the extreme emotions. The main objective of the German movement was to rebel against the Enlightenment of the rationalism and against the classical idea of beauty of neo-classicism. The movement was named after a play in the dramatist and novelist Friedrich von Klinger. In 1776, the author of Sturm and Drang portrays in it the violent aspects of individual and the subjective emotions. The description of the landscape and its aspects become prominent. The use of everyday speech of ordinary people instead of lofty poetic diction. Romanticism is concerned with the individual, the informal, emotional, and dynamic. So, if you read lyrical ballads of Wordsworth and Coleridge defines this age, how art and culture grew, how life was grown. Child is the concept of imagination is mostly related to the child, whereas adult life is thought to be related to work culture. The most literature that you come across is Britain and German. That is in English and in German language. Whereas the English focused on poetry, the German focused on novels, or we can say the prose writing. And then we have the Gothic, the concept of, supernatural, which came into being. The concepts of a modern, we can say that it is the birth of here we have the birth of the modern society. The one we are obviously living in the postmodern era, but here we can see that the seeds of modernism are being sowed in the daily lifestyle of the simple people who were living beforehand, who were just dealing with the life as it came into being.